Nate, can you hear me? Okay, good. Good morning. How's everybody doing today? Good, good. I'm so glad. Are you ready for an exciting hour and 15 minutes? My name is Maricel Lawrence. I am the online program launch director in digital education, and I am so glad that you are here for our second session for this talk series that we have for online graduate programs. I am here with this wonderful panel that I would like to introduce. So we'll start with Dr. Adler. Dr. Adler, would you like to introduce yourself over there? And why is this thing not working?
Oh, okay. I'm Howard Adler. I teach in the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management for the last years, and we just started a new online master's degree. We started it in May, I think, was the starting date, and so I'm happy to be here to learn just like the rest of you, because I was a newbie to online education, but I've learned very quickly because we have a lot of expertise in this area. So I'm happy to be here and participate in this.
We'll go down the line.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dorothy Nyanikin, and I'm a senior learning designer with Wiley. And one of the most intriguing and exciting parts of my job is that I get to work with stellar and extremely talented faculty like Dr. Adler and the rest of you. So I completely enjoy being here and helping out with the online courses.
Fantastic. My name is Mitch Springer. I'm in the Purdue Polytechnic Institute. More specifically, I work with my colleagues in the Center for Professional Studies in Technology and Applied Research.
Hi, I'm Jeff Chicky. I'm Instructional Design Supervisor on our Course Design and Development team here, and we're within ITAP and Teaching and Learning Technologies, and we also help to work with faculty to redesign courses, put them online, and we're going to be talking more about that process here in just a little bit.
Very good. Thank you so much. Let's see if this works for me now. Okay, very good. So I'd like to do a quick introduction to what we're going to be talking about today. We wanted to share with you our experiences on developing and teaching online graduate programs, self-supporting programs. Now, what we're going to be talking about today, you can also do in your regular just one course online course if you want to, but in our experience in here that we're going to be talking about is a self-supportive program, online program. Now, you'll see here, we shared this information last time around, so for those that are back, here's the repeat of what we did last time, but we have about fully online 17 programs and about 7 hybrid master's degrees, plus non-credit programs bringing about $37 million a year. That is gross profit. So here are a few things or reasons why we suggest that you explore the opportunity of a self-supporting online program. So I thought we'll share this again today so then you have that in mind as we go through this process. Now, we're talking about distance education. We're talking about online and hybrid programs. So one of the biggest questions we usually have is, should I go completely online? Can I put in my program completely online? Or should I go hybrid so then our students can come to campus once in a while? So we started thinking about what is the difference between hybrid and online? What are the benefits of being completely online, and what are the benefits of maybe doing a hybrid program? So those are a few things that you wanted to consider, the type of activities perhaps that you're doing in an online or a hybrid program. And today, as we discuss with our panel the opportunities that they have available for their students, so we'll talk about the difference between online and hybrid in their own departments and colleges. Now, when you're thinking about developing an online program or an online course, you might think, okay, I have never done this. How am I going to do this by myself? So one thing that we really want you to take out of this session today is that you're not alone. So if you're interested in doing an online course or an online program, there is a full team available for you to work with. Now, you might decide to work with some of them and not everyone, and that is completely up to the department, up to you. But things to consider are your subject matter expert. Very important, right? So we need the faculty in there to be able to help us do this. And then we might have instructional designers like Jeff and Dorothy. You might have a video production team that will help you make those videos really great and beautiful for the students to go through and enjoy the course. You might have an academic support team like EPE, ProStar, Digital Education. You might have a Wiley in the administration support. So you have a full team. So we usually talk about online education as a team sport, right? So you're never by yourself. There's always a team working with you. Now, things to consider are the support that I just talked about, the content, what is the video lectures that you're going to be putting in there, what the assignments are going to be, how are you going to assess your students, and then what are the tools available to be able to do that. What is the learning management system that you want to use? Would you be using Blackboard? Would you be using something else? Now we're looking at maybe Qualtrics or different tools like the Studio tool that TLT has available for you. So those are the different things that you might want to consider when you go online. And we're going to be talking about those today. Now, we like to do a brief description of developing online courses. We're going to be talking about developing and teaching. So I'll hand the mic to Jeff so that he can do a brief description of what it takes to develop a course with an instructional designer.
So this illustration up here is one that's actually published on our website, and it's just kind of a high-level overview of the process that we use to go through the development of an online course. And we really start off with just a kickoff meeting, get to know more about you, what your goals are for the course, get to know more about the course. And if it's a brand new course, of course, there's no history there, but if it's been taught face-to-face or in another format, we like to learn more about that before continuing that process. From there, we really dive into the real content of the course. And one of the big things we work with is alignment all the way through the course. Writing those clear learning outcomes for the course. What are students going to be able to do as a result of that course? And how do we get them there? What are those activities that are going to show that or give them practice doing that? And then what assessments are we going to use to actually show the evidence that they were able to reach those learning outcomes? Then you get to the brick and mortar side of it. You know, how does this actually look aesthetically? How is it organized? Is it easy for the students to follow? And we put all of those pieces together in there as well. And then this is kind of an iterative process where we continue that support through the time that you're actually teaching the course, and then also review it again afterwards and say, how did things go? Are there changes you want to make for that next iteration?
Thank you, Jeff. And we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about that piece once we get to the questions. Our next slide will talk a little bit about teaching. And now the development and the teaching, they're very close to each other, right? So we're thinking about when you think about how you're going to teach an online course, you have to start with the design and the development of the course. But I was talking to Dr. Adler yesterday, and we were talking about the audience. So when we are teaching, when we're designing our courses, we were thinking, okay, so one of the first questions that we usually have is, who is our audience? Who are our students? How different are our students from an on-campus program? Dr. Adler, would you like to share with the group what we were discussing yesterday about the difference between your on-campus and online audience and how you teach them, perhaps?
Between our residential program and the new online program, that's the first thing the faculty decided on. The audience we were going after were people who had been out in the industry a minimum of 3 to 5 years and had management and supervisory experience. So that was the audience we were shooting at. So my feeling is that when you're looking at a course like this, that you need to have some kind of a vision of how you want the course and the program to be. Now, my course being, I don't know if we're going to call it the kickoff course, but it's the first course that everyone takes in the cohort, and I thought it was extra important because it gets them off to a a good start. So the audience is people who want to be taking this for the value that it's going to add to their career, but also obviously for the degree. It's not that the residential students don't feel the same way, but most of them are international with a lot less experience, so it's much harder to relate actual industry. My course is leadership in the hospitality industry. A lot of our students that are in the program don't necessarily always have a hospitality and tourism management undergraduate degree. So there's a lot of topical areas in there that could be related to a lot of different industries. So I think it's really important to look at who your intended audience is, and especially since obviously these people are adults, they're sitting all over the country in front of their computer screen, they have other responsibilities. So that led me to say, how do I want this course to look myself? If it was me, what would I want to get out of it, and how would I want it to look? And I was trying to look at it from my standpoint as an adult. For many of them, they have not been in school for, some of them up to 10 or 15 or longer years, and they don't really know what to expect. So that led me also to believe that I had to be very structured, and with the help of all of our friends here from Wiley-Deltec, they led me, because I was a newbie to online education. Even though I had a vision, I didn't know how to operationalize it, and that's where they all were very helpful in doing that. So I think looking at your audience, and it's not that you have different standards of doing it, it's just a question of how are you going to appeal to that audience so that they can come away and say, well, I really was able to utilize a lot of the information to help my future leadership skills and to be promoted into jobs I'm looking for. And I think we've been successful to this point, but I don't think you can ever rest on your laurels. Now, this will be the third time I'm teaching and starting in January, so we're going through another iteration that Dorothy is helping me with to change it. I think it's an ongoing, you don't just design the course and then sit on it for the next 5 years. It's an ongoing thing, so that's basically the way I felt about it.
Thank you for that. We were talking yesterday about it's a graduate program just like it is on campus, so the rigor is still the same. Just the activities perhaps that we're adding into this might be a little bit different for the industry, for the students that we're working with. So that audience makes a difference when we're looking at how do we align our activities, how do we engage with our students, how do we perhaps even assess them. So those are key things that we're going to be talking a little bit more in detail today. I'd like to share with you, so we have great faculty members here. I'd like to share just one more faculty member here and her experience developing an online course, and that's Dr. Patty Hart from Spanish. Nate, can you pull the video?
Oh, yeah. One second.
That's good.
Now, I think one of the biggest misconceptions that people may have about online teaching is that you lose that up-close
So now what we're going to be doing next, and we're in perfect timing here for our presentation, we're going to get to the point of questions and really dig in deep in the development and instruction of online courses. So what we did, we pulled a couple of questions that they are on the slide that's just going to come up in a few minutes here, or seconds, hopefully. So the questions are going to be there, and what I like to do is ask you to take a look at those questions and see which one you want us to get started with. And if it is possible, we'll get there soon.
We'll get it.
So I want you to take a look at the questions and see which ones would you like to start with. So then we answer those questions for you. And then if you have any other ones, please feel free to ask those anytime. There we go. Thank you, Nate.
You're welcome.
All right. So we can start with the course development list in there. Please take a look at those questions. See which one would you like to start with. If not, we'll just go 1 through 9 in there, and we'll add as you think is necessary. Do we have any, or should we go up and down in that list? Should we go 1? I'm going to close in here. All right, number 1. Let's see, Jeff, how long does it take to develop a course?
So this is actually an interesting question because there's a lot that goes into the timing of developing a course. Our process is typically 16 weeks, and it's not necessarily because it takes 16 weeks to put all the pieces together, but sometimes it just takes that long to fully comprehend how we're rethinking the way we're actually going to do something in an online course. So as we work through that process, sometimes it takes time to digest it. And so we ask for 16 weeks to develop an online course.
Thank you. Now, Dorothy, what do you think about how do you make sure the course content is accessible? How do you do that in your area?
Well, in developing student-centered learning, which is really what it's all about, this involves a deep inclusion of all kinds of students, especially students with different kinds of learning disabilities. So we take accessibility seriously as part of our current best practice in course design as well as in delivery. And we make sure that we follow the best practice recommendation by WCAG and ADA, and they have listed 4 main principles or tenets of accessibility, which is everything that is delivered online in your content needs to be perceivable by all, operable by all kinds of students, understandable by all, and robust enough to support all kinds of learners with normal abilities and disabilities as well. And in our course design, we kind of hit these 4 tenets in 4 different ways. One is in our choice of LMS. As we heard, we have a choice of LMS, and there is that discussion. And we want to ask ourselves the question is, we want to choose and use an LMS that is accessible to all kinds of learners. And simple things like it works well with screen readers, it leverages semantic markup, so you find students can look at their assessments, and it also supports best practice for content navigation. You want something that's structured and easy to use as well. Secondly, not only just the LMS, but consider accessibility in terms of technology. As Jeff was mentioning, we sit down and make a thoughtful decision on what kind of technology do we want to use that supports and drives learning, but also to choose and use the tools that are WCAG compliant that support the best practices there. And some examples, just for your interest, and I'm sure you've all seen them, is using flip cards, or is using content sliders, or is using SCORM activities that have abilities to make it accessible to all. So we, in our choice of LMS, technology, and also definitely in course design and development, we design courses, content that is accessible to all. And on the occasion where content cannot be accessible in terms of interactive learning components, we have alternatives, alternate text, and maybe PDF downloads that can achieve the same kind of learning objectives in just a little different way. But we make sure that we reach those learning objectives in terms of accessibility. And lastly, through the media. we want our courses to sing. We want it to really engage and drive the interest of students. So we want to design media that's rich, but is also WCAG compliant. And what that might mean is all the audio and all the video have transcripts attached to them. And also, we follow the clearly specified specifications from WCAG in terms of color, contrast, the visual presentation of different materials. So in all these different ways, in most of the four large ways, we ensure that we work hard to ensure accessibility for all students.
Thank you. Mitch, how do you develop to scale the number of students in an online course without losing quality?
That's a very good question. And actually, this question is an issue of process. And probably the best way to talk about this is to first look at an example. Quality assurance used to be that concept of testing a product or service after it was fundamentally complete. And then we evolved or transitioned that concept into quality engineering. Quality engineering then was a concept of building quality into the product so that you don't have quite the rework and quite the cost associated with the product after it's already over with. If you take a look at distance education and specifically the D cubed or the D3 of design development delivery, you'll see that the design and development of a course is actually a process. And what that means is that there are multiple seemingly sequential, although they recurse on themselves, activities. And each of these activities have one or more outputs, which is a product. Now, these activities and these outputs are very specifically aligned to goals and objectives for the course that you have. So if you then go to the next layer and you say, okay, we're going to look at design and development of this course as a process with multiple activities. Which of these activities, if we were to scale this course, would cause us the greatest amount of risk? Which of these activities would create a scenario that would bottleneck the process? And that idea of risk mitigation for each of those activities is where we want to reside. It's where we want to think about. It's what we want to think about when we begin to talk about the idea of creating something to scale. So in other words, I can simplify this even one more step by saying if I have a course and it's on campus and I'm going to have a homework assignment every week and I'm going to have a quiz every so often and I'm going to have an exam every so often after that and I'm going to have some papers due and I'm going to have some projects due, this is a very busy course. And that's all great and wonderful and things work good when you have people there and when you have a lot of time and when you only have 20 students or maybe 30 at most. Now scale that to 75, to 100, to 150, to 200 students. That's not going to work so well, right? There's just too much stuff there. So you need to rethink for each of the activities of what I'm designing, what is it that I really want to see as an output? What aligns best to the goals and objectives of the course that we're designing? And through that, then, you can start to mitigate those risks by eliminating those bottlenecks that might occur, right? And so that's really how it works. It's really fundamental in theory. You just look at it as a process. In practice, it's a lot more difficult because what you find is all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, and I was guilty of this semester ago, right? I ended up with 70-some students in a class, and it dawned on me that I have papers too close together, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is catastrophic. How's this going to happen? You know, well, it happens because I spend endless hours, day and night and weekends, grading these silly things, right? They're not silly, for the record. They're not silly. They're very good papers. They're very good papers, but you get the idea. So the concept is plan it in to the initial design and development, and then when you deliver, you're prepared for growth escalation. That's it.
Thanks, Mitch. And please feel free to ask any questions if you want to do follow-up questions from where we are. Dr. Adler, so in your HDM program, how did you select what tools you were going to use for your courses?
When we were looking at designing these courses, once again going back to who the audience is, and most of these people are pretty savvy in knowing how to go through their business sense and what they do on an everyday basis. So we had to first learn what issues they might have navigating this. So even the first week, the first time we taught it, where I had them download a video introducing themselves and discussing their strengths and weaknesses, some of the students you might remember had issues with that. So I think the first time you teach it, you don't assume anything, and you have to be very flexible in making adjustments. And I think, one of the things Mitch was saying, that all of a sudden something dawns on you, that you didn't count on. Now, my sections have only been, 10 people at this point, and I think we're trying to keep it at 20 per section. But even that would double the amount of work. So in reference to Mitch's comment about the amount of work, you also have to take into consideration when you're going to evaluate all these papers and read all these boards and do all these things, what's the point at which you can't really continue to do the high quality feedback that you want to give the students on a weekly basis, because the stuff keeps coming. It doesn't stop. Now, the courses we're teaching are 8-week courses. We're teaching a whole course in 8 weeks. Now, most of the students are only taking this one course, but I found that you have to be very organized in terms of giving that feedback. And once they put that stuff on there, I don't like to wait. I like to have it all to them by the following Tuesday after everything is due Sunday. Some of the stuff is due earlier in the week. So the tools, the tools should be that, to me, it added value in terms of applying for it, of application. But also, I want the students to be able to justify and be able to bring things, why they decided to use this form of leadership, or how they can apply transactional leadership skills or servant leadership to real life situations. So I want them to justify the decisions they're making. So they have to actually give me background. So I want it to be a tool that it's not just busy work, that there's a real purpose. And I think the feedback that you get after the first time is very valuable. Unfortunately, most of the feedback was very positive, but I don't want to stand. It's easy, I think, Mitch, to good job, Howard, and do all that stuff. But the goal is, how can we make this the best possible course from a learning standpoint and a useful standpoint to them? And that sometimes requires changes. Now, I think all of you in your regular classes, some students will tell you, you had too much work. And some students will tell you, you didn't cover this enough. And if everybody's agreeing and saying you're great, you're probably not doing your job. So I took that feedback and I looked at it and I evaluated. But by the way, it also helped me when I read those videos and I look at their bios and I know who the students are. It helps me to understand who those students, where they're coming from. And I also tried to make it so that they could contact me not only by email, but also by, I gave them my cell phone. Let's have if this is more comfortable, let's have a conversation. I had a few students early in September that happened to be in the hurricane zone. One was working at the convention center in Houston during all this stuff that was going on. Another one at a resort in Florida. So, you have to know what their situations are. Not that makes it any, not that you cut them slack in terms of the quality, but you have to be flexible. This is life. So that's how I kind of work on the tools. And I'm learning which tools work and which don't, because I'm not an expert in online, education, but there are experts to go to who, I ask the questions and they give me the answers, whether I like them or not, right?
Thank you for that. Now, the next question, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
As I'm thinking.
There you go. Yeah,
No worries.
apologize.
Does it turn? I have an assistant working on that.
Here, I'll give you the mic. We'll do this.
Maybe it's on, you just can't.
Is it on? Oh, it's on.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, so as I listen, and even going back up to the first question, how long does it take to develop a course? And I'm in ProStar, so we have a lot of different venues. We have self-paced, voice over PowerPoint, very fundamental, simple, seems like old technology. We have synchronous, online, WebEx, even Adobe in some cases, if they choose to do that. So when I'm listening to the response, like how long does it take to develop a course? What's the variation? 16 weeks, is that a course that's never been taught? And, there's content that somebody wants to deliver, or is it a course that's been taught in a lecture series in a residential program, or, right?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
We'll both kind of talk about that, you specifically from your setting and me from my setting.
Sure.
So typically that 16-week course development process takes place when you're transitioning a course from a face-to-face type setting to that online. setting, it makes sense to do it within the semester before you're actually going to teach it. So we use that semester to do that. Now, that's not to say that we haven't done it in less time, but like I said, the timing actually has more to do with taking time to digest all of that than it does necessarily actually putting the pieces together. We've definitely worked with faculty to develop courses in shorter amount of times. It's just a lot more difficult, and it takes a lot more effort all packed in one. And if you look at that 16-week process, in terms of actual effort being put into the development of the course, it's very much kind of slow start, and then towards the end, it's really kind of backloaded. We try not to do that. We try to do it differently, but it always tends to push that way because as it starts to come together, it starts to become evident of all of those pieces that need to actually be done and completed. So that's kind of why we pushed for that time frame.
There's
Go ahead, Mitch.
There's a macro perspective that goes on top of that. What Jeff's describing, and I agree with that 100%, which is sort of the tactical, how do you design that course and how much time will it take. But sitting on top of that is this concept of, do you have a course that's approved for distance? Do you not? Is the course a part of a curriculum that's approved for distance? Is it not? Not every course is going to be approved for distance through the graduate school, as an example. You have to go back and fill out a Form 40G all over again, and you have to check the one box that says distance on it, because that allows you to do that. And if you don't do that, then the graduate school is going to bring it to your attention that you don't have approval to teach that course at a distance. What if it's a curriculum? What if we're talking about an entire curriculum? How long does that take? Well, a curriculum could take you 2 years. We've spent 2 years trying to get curriculums approved to be promoted at a distance, right, to be delivered at a distance. In some cases, we've been working on something now for 5 years, right? You've got to get a lot of support for the concept. First off, you got to go through your academic department. It has to get approved there to be delivered at a distance. You got to go through your college. Usually your grad ed committee of one form or another has to approve it for a distance. You got to go to the grad school. And from there, they'll bless it and say, yay, verily, you can go off and do that. And if I misspeak, I was looking for my friends from the grad school in here. I'm not sure I see one. But so feel free to correct me. But the point being is that there is a significant variability depending on where you are in the process of gaining approval or having approval prior to even designing and developing the course. And so it's important, if you're thinking about doing this, that you get with some organization. DE is excellent about this. They know how to do this. Any one of us who've done this know how to do this. And say, what's involved? This is where I think we are, and this is what I think we want to do. And what we want to do may be a course. It may be multiple courses. It may be an entire curriculum. And if that's the case, you need to think that through, because you may have some front-end effort and work on your part that has to be done. It's not always a quick, hey, I want to do this today, and next thing you know, some number of months later, Jeff's got it done for you. That'd be great, but you're not going to deliver it without the grad school's blessing.
Thanks, Mitch, for that.
Yeah.
Another thing to consider is, I got another mic. I have several mics with me. So another thing to consider is, what is the expertise that you have? Have you developed an online course before? Perhaps you had, so you already know what you need to do, so you might be going a little bit faster. But if this is your first time, considering that 16-week might be a good idea, it's just so then you have enough time together. So those are good questions. Anything else, or can we move on? Go ahead. Can you click on the mic?
So are there any success stories here on campus of, I've been trying to, you got it? All right. I've been trying to move one of my courses online now for 5 years. I'm just incredibly busy. I have a huge research program. And if I just don't have this continuous support to move it forward, I can't put it at the top of my list, but I know it's doable. So are there faculty here on campus that have just, it's number 2 or 3 on their priority list, it can't be number 1? How do you work in that kind of environment where you've got a faculty member that just, it's got all these other things going on, but they want to get this done?
Yeah, and that is a common situation perhaps, right? So one of the things that I would say is we'll help you to go through that process. And sometimes, especially myself, I feel like I'm bugging the person. Like, can we do this? We have this timeline. Can we do that? So we'll follow through that process with you, and we'll get you there. Perhaps you had a timeline that it was pushed a month more or 2 months later, but we'll get you there. So definitely we have had those type of situations.
Could you just put me in contact with a faculty member that just, it seems like they're
Yeah.
in the kind of work mode that I am?
Absolutely.
Or I could just say, how does this work?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. John, do you have a comment to make?
Yeah, I guess is that the right one? Yeah.
John,
I'll volunteer, right? So I went through this process a few years ago to develop my first online course. I'm a fairly busy person, lots of things going on, and so, but with the regular meetings with the instructional designers, we got it done. And, you know.
I had one.
Yeah.
And then there was, it's just been,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
I'm trying to do some things that are different.
Yeah.
So, trying to put an online computer course too that goes with the lecture.
Yeah.
But, as you know,
Yeah.
I've had this conversation for a long time, just kind of going, this is my third major attempt to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd like to get it done.
Let's chat about how to make that happen.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. We'll continue with our questions. And so now the next question we pretty much have answered a couple of times now. How do you often redesign? And I'll say very often, right? As often as you need to, as you're getting feedback. So that is pretty much the answer I would say everyone agrees with, right?
Yeah.
Do you, okay, very good. Now, do you design in modules? Jeff, what about that? Can you talk a little bit about it?
Sure. Here, let me make sure that's on. So first thing I want to say about this question is that the faculty ultimately have the decision when it comes to exactly how you're going to teach your course. You're the content expert in this situation, and what makes the most sense to you, is probably going to be the best for you to teach. So when it comes to modules, sometimes people like to organize their course into weeks and different situations like that. Whether you're going with weeks, whether you're going with modules, the one thing to always keep in mind is that you want to make sure that the content is, or those weeks or what modules, they're tied to concepts. Because for the student, as they're entering into that content, they need something in their brain to tie their learning to. They need a general overall guiding concept that they're going to start that module, and they're going to know by the time they click into that module what they should be learning within that module. So whether that module is a week or what we call a module, it really doesn't matter as long as the students are very clear on what exactly they're going to be learning during that time period.
Thank you. We'll continue with our questions now. Mitch, how do you foster peer-to-peer interaction? So we have been talking a lot about the interaction between the students and the faculty. Mm-hmm. How do you do this peer-to-peer or student-to-student?
Well, there's a couple of different things you can do. One is you can require communication that takes place. You can force teams if that's one of the things you want to do, and you can do that in projects, you can do that in papers, you can do that in a number of ways. You can also use your learning management system, which will keep track of communication between students, communication of students, how often are they on, how much time do they spend when they're on. I've known some faculty who have said you have to be on some X number of times for some Y number of minutes. You could do that kind of thing. Yeah, I guess my feeling is that I don't know that I necessarily want to force a communication to take place that's unnecessary, and here's why I say that. Predominantly, we work with working adult professional students, right? And so these people are on average, the average person in our program is 36 years of age with 15, 16 years of experience. They're very busy, and so they've got family, they've got children, they have events that they go to, they work overtime, they travel international, and so a lot of what you see is that they will communicate with you as an instructor, and this gets into a different question, as often as they feel they need to. It's not so much a I'm sucking up for a grade type thing, and I know I shouldn't be saying that. This is a G movie, right? But so they don't force conversation. So the issue is if you want them to communicate with each other, then you can create environments that would foster that, such as this is a group project, this is a group paper. I want the two of you to think about something, or the five of you to think about something, no matter where you are geographically around the world, and come up with some conversation that the rest of us can participate in. So there are many, many ways to do this, and some are you can mandate, others you don't have to, and you just recognize that when you're dealing with working professional adult learners, sometimes that will take place on its own, and generally it does, to be quite honest about it.
Very good, thank you. Now, Dr. Adler, what were the skills or techniques that would you say are necessary when you get started in developing online courses?
Well, in developing them, I think you have to really look at your timeline. In order to meet that timeline, you do have to meet those points. And you know, people like Garth who were very good about very gently saying, Howard, today we need to cover this and get this done, and that was very helpful to keep me on, because as you were saying, we're busy. We have a lot of other things going on. For me, this program was a very important program to get started and get my course started. So I actually started, I don't know, probably 6 months before to get the course done. And I do want to say one thing and add to this, that in terms of one of the last questions, very few of us, when we design a course, we're not reinventing the wheel. That course has been taught somewhere in some format, and very often online. So one of the things that I did early on, just to give me an idea, was I pulled up all the leadership courses that I could find that are currently being taught online, whether they're in hospitality or general management, and kind of looked at how they were being delivered. And we all pick up ideas from each other. So I don't think there's a need to have to say, well, I've got to start from scratch and develop this all on my own, and everything's got to be new. We can use ideas from other people, just like we do in our residential courses. So I think you have to be flexible, have this vision that, okay, how can I make this course the best experience, and what works for me? You have to use tools that are comfortable for you. And, you know, I like the fact that the students have to respond to each other a few times. And the fact that we have to monitor it, I think, helps to make sure that feedback is valuable. And sometimes you can see a thread coming where there's a piece of information and you just want to reel them in and say, okay, could you go a little bit further? And some of them, after a few weeks, are not shy about saying to another classmate, well, I don't think you were right in doing it this way. But the other classmates, after they get to know their other people, I think they begin to say, oh, that's a very useful comment. Thanks very much. And you can see I'm getting a lot more interaction in that class than my graduate classes on campus. So to me, that's been the most rewarding skill, to know that if you monitor it and guide it, I think that's a skill that's very important. You have to constantly be monitoring things.
Very good, thank you. Should we move on to the next question, or do we have any follow-up? No? Okay. So the next question, let's see, Jeff, what are the non-negotiables for online courses to be high quality? What do you think?
So we recently have been looking at the Quality Matters rubric, and we've looked at how other institutions are using that, and we're kind of using that to guide our review process right now. But you know, beyond the Quality Matters rubric, you know, one of the things that was said over here earlier was talking about, you know, thinking of the course from the student's perspective, and that's a big part of that process, is really stepping out of the shoes of you know, the instructor of the course and thinking about, what does this look like from the student's perspective? Is it easy to navigate? Are my expectations clear? In our face-to-face courses, you know, we can put our stuff in our learning management system, but we have that opportunity face-to-face to talk to our students and further explain, you know, what's there. We don't have that opportunity in our online courses. So really making sure that it's very, very clear the expectations of students, exactly what they're going to be doing, how did they get to the content that we need them to access, and that all of that is very concise and clear in our learning management system. Accessibility, we talked about earlier, is huge, and that's a non-negotiable. All the content, 100%, has to be accessible. And the other big thing that we look at is alignment. are the activities and assessments aligned to the outcomes? Are students being asked, giving opportunities to practice what we're asking them to be able to do, and are we assessing them in a way that really does tell us that yes or no they're able to do what we're asking them, or our learning outcomes are actually asking them to be able to do in the end of the course?
Very good. Thank you. So those were our questions for course development. Is there anything else that you would like to ask before we jump into instruction? Yes.
I want to go back to that question 9. So I just jumped on that Quality Matters website.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, yeah. Anyway, so I jumped on that Quality Matters website right now. It looks like they have documents that are downloadable, and I suspect they're going to be wanting some money somewhere. Correct?
So we have a contract with QM, so if you want to have access to that, we can send you all of the information. So there is a system for Purdue.
Okay, great.
You can have access to it.
Question, yeah.
Perfect. We'll send you that information. No problem. Anything else? Yes. Want to click on the mic?
How do you decide when you want to do an asynchronous online versus a synchronous virtual class?
Anyone wants to take that question?
I know target audience is a factor, certainly, but...
Yeah, I would definitely say that, make sure my mic's on. I would definitely say target audience is a factor. You know, when you're working with a bunch of working professionals that don't have a lot of time and are going to be accessing that, they have families, and they're going to be accessing it as they have availability, asynchronous probably is going to make the most sense. You know, a good example of a mix between the two of them would be the Krannert Weekend MBA program, where they're actually they're doing part of their stuff online, and then every other Saturday they're coming here. And they just decided that it was really important that time that they get those working professionals to be able to come together and share each other's stories from what they're doing and applying the knowledge to what they're doing on a daily basis and have those conversations. They thought that was an essential outcome of that program. So really it goes back to, and you'll hear this as you work with instructional designers a lot, it goes back to the outcomes. And not just the outcomes of the course, but as you're looking at it at a program level or a curricular level there, what are the outcomes that you want for the students? Is that face-to-face communication with each other and them getting together and having those conversations going to be essential to getting to one of your outcomes, then it may make sense to have some synchronous in there.
And there's always a trade-off. You're going to exclude a certain target audience if you have a requirement for a resident.
Absolutely.
Right.
And time zone differences. International students are excluded from certain choices that you make. So.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean that you couldn't do synchronous group activities, right? So you say to the students, here's an activity that you do, and you decide what time you're going to meet, and you decide what group are you going to be part of that works for your time.
I'm sorry.
Go on. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, we sort of coined this term as well called semi-asynchronous, because what you can do is you can provide asynchronous opportunities, but yet you can sync up when things are going to happen, right? We're all going to, the easiest thought on that is that we're all going to deliver a paper on January 20th. We're all going to deliver our projects on whatever. So essentially you can watch ahead, you can do whatever you want to do, you can follow the lectures accordingly, but everybody has to produce at the same time period, right? And so the concept of semi-asynchronous is, yes, it's asynchronous. It gives you the freedom to be anywhere in the world, and that's great, especially when you have a larger international population because they're working in 6, 8, 10-hour differences from where you are. But yet it brings everybody somewhat synced up at a certain period of time.
Yeah, I was also going to say that we have several extremely successful sessions in which we've had international synchronous sessions, but these were scheduled, like 16 weeks or 8 weeks out, so they know on certain day they're going to be invited to a synchronous session, so it's in their calendar. And also, as we talked about, it's need-based. It's kind of seizing the moment in which students have presentations. Their personal experience and professional experiences are so valuable to each other that they will make this a priority, whether it's getting up in South Korea at 2 a.m. in the morning to attend the synchronous presentation of their project that they deliver together. That's the value that they perceive from that. So they will do it happily, gladly. And there's also the additional benefit of recording such synchronous sessions. So in the off chance that somebody couldn't make it, they'll always have that valuable piece of recording. And also from the instructor's point of view, when he sees the synergy that's happening in the course, an instructor is able to deliver pertinent feedback that is pivotal for the group. So it develops a very valuable piece of learning at that time as well. So it makes for a very exciting learning.
And actually, may I follow up on that?
Go ahead.
Okay, I don't want to consume the time we have.
You have a minute, Mitch.
Oh, bless you. I only need a few seconds. I've had a lot of coffee, so I can go as fast as you need me to. If I can remember what I was going to say. Oh, yeah, what I was going to say is, so we've been doing distance hybrid programs since 1998, so it's been roughly 20 years. And one of the things that people do talk about they like is exactly what you were just saying, which is, my colleague here was just saying, which is they love the opportunity to come together and talk. And they think that's a significant part, the networking opportunity, the coming together, the face-to-face. They really value that aspect of the distance hybrid programs. That doesn't mean they can't communicate, as we've just talked about. Certainly they can. But there seems to be some value, especially with adult learners, in coming together and putting a face with a name or a voice and being able to have some intelligent exchange.
Great.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much. Let's go into instruction, and we have a very short period of time here, so we'll try to go as quickly as we can. Dorothy, how do you help your faculty deciding how to assess students? What are the things that you guys do for assessing online learners?
It's a very exciting topic, but I'll try and contain myself and my enthusiasm. One is, considering it's a graduate level, assessments have to be thoughtful and intentional, obviously with the target audience in mind. But it really has to be dealing with developing skills and confidence to practice those skills, them being adult professional learners. And essentially it is sitting back, actually working from the end in mind, saying, what do we think are the skills that we need to develop in the students? Where do they need to develop mastery? How can they add value to their already valuable careers? So kind of identify those learning outcomes and those points in which they can build on their skills, and identifying that in the very beginning, and then designing assessments that will promote mastery and evidence mastery over these concepts. So designing those assessments at the graduate level, I think, is huge. We call it the backwards design, so kind of looking at the end in mind and designing our assessments in that way. Another piece, for brevity, is kind of using authentic assessments. These are graduate students with real-life, valuable and extensive professional experience. So we want to develop authentic assessments that are real-world based, that solve problems, that bring up solutions. And there's an opportunity for students to share their experience and develop a synergy in their group activities or in their paper. And also kind of at the graduate level, it's important to incorporate assessment that reflects critical thought, promotes higher order thinking, so that they're able to analyze and defend their positions. So just sharing their experiences. So skillfully designing those assessments that excite students. You know, for the first time, I actually have students that are excited about developing a group project rather than growing like, oh, I have to work with somebody. But it does mean that those are kind of authentic assessments with real-world situations, opportunities for group work, projects, case studies, solve a problem together, design a new product together. So those are all real-world kind of scenarios in which they're a fail-safe place in which they can make mistakes and still learn from it. Whereas in the real world, they may not have that luxury. So just some of those pieces in terms of assessments.
Very good. Do we have follow-up questions for that? No? Okay, let's move on. Now, Mitch, do students in your programs come to online office hours?
Yes.
Yes?
I can stop there.
How do they do that?
Yeah, they do. You can set up online office hours. You can set up, and I'll just go one step further. Because I teach graduate courses, and because I predominantly work with working professional adult learners, I find that when they have a question, they sort of would like it responded to in a reasonable period of time. So I have this guaranteed 24-hour thing. If you send me an email, text me, and in fact, I'll go one step further. I give them all my cell numbers. So I've got thousands and thousands of students who have my cell number, and they've had them over the last 30 years. My cell number's not changed. I've never had anybody abuse that system. So they'll text me when I'm watching a football game or a basketball game, and I'll text them right back, right? So there's this immediate response. And I think you'll see, especially when you're dealing with adult learners, they sort of want that kind of response. It's like, I need something answered now. I'm at home. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm working on paper. I know I shouldn't have waited so long, but I did. And I can you respond at all type thing. And it's like, absolutely. Why would I not respond, right? And so everybody has my cell number. They text me. They email me. They've called me before. I will say now it's a little more difficult because you get these marketing calls. And so it's like I'm hesitant to answer the phone. I usually let it go to voicemail. And then when I hear it's a student, I'll call them right back type thing. And when you have unlimited minutes with Verizon, it doesn't matter when you call. So it just doesn't matter.
That's not a commercial, right?
That's not a commercial. No, I don't care who you're with. If you have unlimited call minutes, you're in good shape, or text minutes, or whatever. But they do. If you do have fixed online office hours or any kind of office hours, there will be those people who will try to fit in within that time period. But generally speaking, like I said, if you're going to be ultra responsive to the students that you're dealing with, that immediate feedback, they tend to like that. It's like, wow, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. I didn't have to wait 24 hours and ask for a day extra to hand in my paper late.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Adler, a lot of the questions that we get when we start thinking about this type of program is, how do students compare? Perhaps, are they in between on campus and online? So have you noticed that in your program right now? Are students doing as well as on campus, those online students? Have you noticed that?
Well, I don't know if it's a fair comparison based on the fact that our residential program is primarily international students, mostly from Korea and China. And this program really, I think we only had one international student the last cohort. And, on campus, obviously, I could have a class of, I think the last time I taught the graduate class on campus, I had no American students. And a lot of us know it's no secret that it's sometimes very difficult to get them to participate. Whereas I find that I'm enjoying the participation. So I don't know if I want to compare success or not, but it's you have to look at the audience where they're from, and the people online have so much more experience that I think it makes it easier for me to be able to pull stuff out of them. Even though my residential students, I do know what level of experience, but it's fairly minor compared to that. But can I answer one of the other ones at the same time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Related to some of the challenges. I think everybody has different challenges when they're teaching for the first, second, or third time. And it could be frustration. With me, the first time, it was some frustration with technology because I was teaching it from my home in Florida. Because I'm not on campus in the spring. So not having access to people. And my computer needed to be updated, so some of that. But I'm sorry. So I didn't have access.
All that, you just
We got it.
As I said, I'm not a technologist. There's a button that turns green. So I think that was one of my challenges. The other challenge I think had to do with, I was looking, I think one of the comments you were making, I look at when the students are online and when they're doing there's a core, a third of them, that everything is, it's 11:30 Sunday night, and there's a core that it's early Monday morning. Those are the early birds. So it's almost like the early adapters, the laggards, almost like a marketing bell-shaped curve. And so having online office hours did not work for me, no more than one or two. But as Mitch was saying, I think that it's a good idea. I was hesitant about doing that with the texting, and I tried it, and not everybody took advantage of it, but a few did. No one took advantage of it. They all asked me, text me, can I talk to you now? Can I call you now? When is a good time? I'm comfortable with that, but I think it depends on what each individual was. I like that because I want to be able to give them the immediate feedback so they can go ahead and do what they need to do. They're all involved with a million different things just like we do. So I value their time. So.
Very good. That was a great response to that question. So I'm going to do the last question, and I like if everyone can answer that question. What are the benefits in your own perspective? So what are the benefits of teaching online? Jeff, do you want to get started, or maybe you can talk about what are the benefits to the student?
Sure. I'm actually a graduate of an online graduate program. Oh yeah, I didn't turn this on either. And just from a student's perspective, the access that was available was huge. And I know we've all heard that before, but I have 6 kids and working full time, and between all of that, I was able to finish an online master's in a year and a half. And that, to me, there was no way I would have ever been able to get my master's if it wasn't for that availability. And I actually got to meet many of the people I was going through courses with. It wasn't a cohort model, but we were all taking courses about the same time at graduation, and it was just an amazing experience to put those faces with the names and that we and tell the rest of our stories behind the academics that we're all going on.
That's great. Congratulations, by
Thank
the
you.
way. That's very difficult to do when you have children and other obligations. Go back to school and get your master's degree. So congratulations.
Yeah, we're a blended family, so yeah.
That's still a challenge. Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. So,
Mitch, would you click on your mic?
I'm sorry. I'm on.
Oh, you're
Done.
on.
Yeah,
Okay.
they probably heard me fidgeting the entire time I've been sitting here. Benefits to teaching online. For me personally, I'll just talk as an instructor, online instructor. I'm sort of big about learning what's going on in similar or related disciplines to where I came from and or industries from where I came from. I spent 30 years before I came to Purdue in the defense industry. And so the benefit to me is I get to hear what they're actually doing. What tools are you using? What processes are you using? What are the policies, procedures, methodologies, and practices are you using? I know what I'm teaching. I know what theory is. I know what application looks like, but I'd like to know what you're doing. And that is a significant opportunity for exchange to understand in real time what's really going on, such that when I have future conversations, I can come back, and I do this all the time. I build into every lecture. Last semester, I talked to somebody from this company, and this is what my understanding of what they were basically doing. Is that really what's going on? Can somebody highlight and help me understand that better? And so I love the online learning because you get this greater participation from people who are out in business and industry. They won't be necessarily in your area. They won't be necessarily within your region or within your state or even within your part of the country, even your part of the world. And you'll start to learn from their experiences what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I just find that fascinating. I like doing it. Distance is especially if you're asynchronous, that's also nice as an instructor, because you can do things in advance and then you can plan your time accordingly, knowing you have this big rush of things that are going to be coming in. And so, it's like, okay, we're building up to it, and all of a sudden there's this onslaught of projects due or papers due or something like that. And so I prefer it. I like teaching online. I have no qualms doing that whatsoever.
Thank you, Mitch. Dorothy?
I also think it's a wonderful way for Purdue. I mean, you've got international stature as an industry that values learning and promotes learning and empowers people to expand your reach into areas where make it accessible to students that may not have the ability to come to campus, but just to make that opportunity available to them, which is huge also. And as Mitch was saying, it's just the reciprocity about our own as instructors or as the faculty, our own personal and professional learning keeping up, as well as the students they learn, is that reciprocity is incredibly gratifying every iteration of the course.
I think it keeps me energized, and sometimes, I know if I'm going to, Monday morning, I'm going to go in there and start reading the boards and start making comments. It's something almost to look forward to because I'm learning. I think, as Mitch was saying, they're on the front lines now working with the companies, and I'm learning about what's going on. And it changes in our industry. It changes every day. I mean, even if you look at a company like Marriott with almost 6,000 hotels, and it's a huge company, well, all the things that are going on in our industry. So I'm learning from them. From a personal standpoint, it's really kind of re-energized me because I'm able to fit it to my schedule how I want at whatever hours. If I want to do it at 2 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes I do, being, like I said, I'm not on campus in the spring. So, I wasn't really, a few years ago when I was anticipating phasing into retirement, I figured I'd just stop teaching and that'll be it, Well, this is like entered a whole new phase of my life, allowing me to still use my expertise and teach, but in another venue. So I think for many people, I hope they feel the same way, because, at some point you got to, you want to keep energized with the students, and if you're not going to be on campus and teaching, there's really no other way to do it. But this is a great way, I think, personally for me, and hopefully I'm giving back to the students my time through the interaction with them. So I appreciate having this new area to. I realize it's not new, but for me it is, and I think that's for a lot of faculty on campus.
I think Dr. Adler is telling Rich Gisali right now that he's not retiring, that he's going to continue teaching, but online. I think that's the message right now, right? Very good. I appreciate all of your time. Thank you so much for coming to answer the questions here. To the audience, thank you so much for coming. Our hope is that we're going to continue doing this next year with new topics and exploring new things when it comes to the online environment. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcel. Nice job.